Welcome everyone who's here. This is our Visiting Design Speaker Series funded by the Sara Turnbull Foundation. It's a great honor to introduce. I'm just very briefly going to say I'm Alicia Galvez. I'm co-teaching this course with Roque Silva, who is here. And I'm going to turn it over to one of my favorite people at Lehman, James. Now I'm self-conscious about saying your last name because I heard there's a different way to say it, but James Mahon, I will practice the Irish pronunciation for next time, who's our Dean of Arts and Humanities, and will be introducing our speaker. James.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm James Mahon. I'm Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities here at Lehman, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome the latest speaker in the Design Speaker Series for this semester, brought to us by the Department of Art at Lehman College and the Lehman College Art Gallery, and sponsored by a generous grant from the Sara Turnbull Foundation. The theme for this speaker series, the spring, is designing migration. And there's a reason why it's that theme. This semester, I'm absolutely delighted to say that we are offering an interdisciplinary course for our students in the Art Department and Department of Latin American Latino Studies. It is a course on migration design, and it is being team taught by Alicia Galvez, who's a professor in the Department of Latin American and Latino Studies, and Roque Silva, who is lead designer in user experience at Bank of America, and who is an honorary visiting professor at Lehman this spring. So the speakers in this series are grouped into those who are speaking and discussing migration, and those speaking and discussing design, and hopefully the ability to combine the two. So I really would like to thank the Sara Turnbull Foundation for enabling this team-taught seminar and for enabling this new speaker series in the spring. So today we're going to hear from Roque Silva. Delighted to have him join us in this virtual college. He is principal designer at Capital One. He hails from Colombia, from Bogota, and moved to the United States when he was a teenager, I believe, and attended the Savannah College of Art and Design, where he switched, I believe, from painting to industrial design. And that led to him getting employment at such firms as Google and Facebook, and now with Capital One. And he has also done a number of independent design projects for firms, including Samsung and NBC. So I'm absolutely delighted to hear him today to speak on what he has entitled his talk today, Roll with the Punches, a case study. So thank you, Roque Silva, for coming to speak to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I wanted to show this presentation I put together. And this presentation is something that I show to potential employers when I'm interviewing. I shared it with schools, and there's multiple reasons why I like to talk about this particular case study. And I hope you guys like the illustration I made for you guys. The reasons I like to share this case study is not only because what I've learned working with a client is really valuable and things that I apply now every day, but also because I had to adapt. This was the first time where we had a budget for research. And often in school, they teach us step-by-steps on how to design products. And it's very linear the way they teach us. But in the real world, we often have to adapt. Things don't come out the same way that you thought, and hypotheses are often broken, and you have to go in different directions. So that's why I wanted to share. I like to share this case study. So I'm gonna keep going. So this project, it was for the Center for Brain Health, and this is an organization in an institution. There's a bunch of scientists, really smart people, much smarter than me, They study the brain, they do CT scans, and they have different programs for people with disabilities, brain injuries, and even for like programs that people can pay for and get better at just thinking. And they came to us, they came to our team because they have this program called the SMART program, and it's for like brain nerds, and it's for people that want to achieve higher order thinking. And they want us to design an application that helps them implement what they've learned in the program after the program was completed. So I want to show a little bit about what's higher order thinking. This is almost like a pyramid of needs, but instead of needs, is how your brain thinks and analyzes the different ways of thinking. Low order thinking is remembering, understanding, and applying. That's for our brains, that's not as hard to achieve. High order thinking is analyzing, evaluating, and creating things. So creativity is all the way at the top. The people who go through the SMART program are trying to achieve higher order thinking more often. They're trying to get better at being creative, at evaluating problems, and analyzing things. So based on the research that they've done and all this study, they separate our brain, daily activities in our brains into these three categories: elephants, rabbits, and brain breaks. So they say that you can only do 2 elephants, which means 2 tasks that require high order thinking a day before your cognitive ability starts declining. And then you can do a few rabbits throughout the day. Those are the tasks that perhaps you have to remember, you kind of understand, or like to-dos. They don't really move the needle forward in your particular projects, but they're necessary to keep going. You can do a few of that a day. And then your brain, in order to achieve those 2 elephants throughout the day, you have to take at least 5 brain breaks. And the brain breaks are different for every person. Some people listen to music, some other people go for a walk, some other people go meditating. So that's what the research showed, that on average, most people, in order to achieve better high order thinking throughout the day, they can only do 2 of those tasks. Sometimes those tasks take 1 hour to 2 hours, and they're hard. You guys all know in your work which ones are those tasks. If I'm a painter, if I'm a designer, it's going to be different. If I were an electrician, you have elephants in your job, but they're different for everybody. So for that project, the team came together. They didn't know what to do. They have all these people that graduate from this program, and they're all asking them, okay, I got the program, I get the research. They go through CT scans and they tell them, well, you can actually do maybe 2.5 elephants, whatever. But they don't have any tool to help them implement this knowledge into the daily lives. So that's why they hire us. And then, so first thing that we wanted to do, we actually wanted to understand who were we designing for. And in order to do that, some of us went through the SMART program and went through the CT scans, and they taught us all the science. And then we interview a few people that went through the program, and then who were they? We wanted to figure that out first. So these people were entrepreneurs. They were also really, really busy people. They had like multiple businesses. They wanted to perform better. That's something that they all express in our interviews. They wanted to always, every day, do a little bit better. They had a lot of money, and then they didn't have enough time. So that was part of it. These programs are very expensive, in the thousands of dollars. So they invest a lot for something like this, for them to perform better. And they're also really motivated. They're people that just want to keep going. They really want to do better. Of course, they're entrepreneurs. Their business depends sometimes on them being motivated, performing well, etc. So that was like the first kind of part. We went through the research, of interviewing, and then understanding the program and what we have to do for them. So we were like, okay, this is super easy. All we have to do is we gotta track their time. If we track their time and then show them in a way that it makes sense for them, they'll be able to adjust their daily task and they'll be able to like perform better. So I started, like, I sketch a lot. This is what I do at work. So I just started sketching ideas, and all of these ideas, we presented them to their team. And I'm very informal at work. A lot of people get surprised. So I just use paper and pen and very normal tools to show what I'm thinking, what things can happen. So from those ideas, we were like, okay, cool. We're gonna track all their time, and we're gonna show them in different ways how their time is being spent. And once they see this, it's going to be this eureka moment, and they're going to know exactly what to do next for the next day. So we did that. We tested 3 smart graduates. We signed up for this app called Rescue Time. There's different apps nowadays that do the same thing, but essentially, basically, you install it in your computer, and then you'll be able to know exactly what people are doing on the computer throughout the day, and it gives you like these bars and how you're spending your time, whether it's in Gmail or on Twitter. And then we also looked at screenshots of their work. We recorded their screens. We looked at their calendar. They were very open about it because they wanted to help. And then we also we took all of that information and we created different visualizations for the day. I'm going to show you an example of one of the ways that we showed them. We showed them different ways, but this was one of the ways. I put it here because I think it's like the coolest one. So we show them this. We went to a room with each of the participants and we asked them, okay, now that you see how you're spending your days and your weeks, tell us what you think. And then they were like, nah, that's cool. I see the work. It's awesome that we can see our work throughout the day, but this doesn't really make any sense. And at this point, we spend so much money, resources, and time to make this. This was my very first project where I actually got to lead the research. I was like really excited. I was like, oh my God, my ideas are so dope. I'm gonna like impress everybody. And I was just floored when every of the participants said, this doesn't mean anything for me. And so I kind of freaked out a little bit. No, not gonna lie. I freaked out a little bit because I thought this was gonna be super easy. And then I started asking them like, why does this make sense? And these are some of the things that we started to like notice about themselves and the program, and what we with our assumptions that people don't live and work in the computer all the time. So measuring their time in the computer wasn't a universal thing. It wasn't for everybody, and it is not a good representation on like how they spend their day. Some of the entrepreneurs are most of the day on the phone, and that's how they get work done. Seeing the time and how you spend in the past, it doesn't really make you or motivate you that much on how to change your habit towards the future. It doesn't really like make you change once you see the past. I think that's gone, and people are just like, okay, whatever. And then people like expressed to us that they wanted to have control over the things that they do and how they perform activities and how they plan. These people are motivated and they have schedules that are very busy. And I think secretaries and assistants that are like giving them their days, they're scheduling lots of things, is really like they need more control. And then high performing people, and I think we probably all are the same way, and perhaps in college we're all performing in high levels. It's hard to remember to take a break. I don't take breaks personally. I forget to eat, so I can relate to that. I basically, when I'm passed out on the floor, that's when I realize, oh man, I needed to take a break. And this is true for a lot of the people who perform really, really hard and really high levels. These entrepreneurs perform at really high levels. I keep saying that they perform at a high level, but they really, really push it. They're big people, really, really smart, really cool. So yeah, but even though that this research was kind of like a failure, in a way it was really successful, because this was the moment where we started seeing like our assumptions, and we started like they were fake, but we were able to take away a lot of the things that we thought, and we were actually moving forward and realizing the actual problems. Because sometimes a company will come or a client will come and they will tell you, this is what we need, and this is what we want, and this is what our users are asking us. And then you go and do research, and then do testing like these, or interviewers, and then you realize that they don't really know what their users actually want or need. And maybe the users, they don't even know what they need until they see it. I think that's what Steve Jobs used to say and stuff, and that's why they don't use user testing. But yeah, so it was actually very successful, because we understood now what were the real problems to solve. And it was kind of like scary to come to the company and say, well, after 3 months of doing all this research and getting and testing and tracking some of your graduates for weeks, we think that you have different problems to solve, and we think that we not necessarily need to track your time, but we need to create other things. We need to solve different problems. And that was a scary meeting. But what were the problems that we needed to solve? That's what the research took us to. And the way that I like to show problems and opportunities to the clients is making little cartoons. So I'm going to show you some of the cartoons I show them on how to express the problems that we needed to solve. So elephants. Yeah, these are actually screenshots of how I presented to this big company my findings, my problems. So planning elephants was a big problem. So I made a little cartoon of the person getting a notification, and a tool will ask them, hey, would you like to plan your elephants for the day? And then it will show you your calendar, and it tells you, hey, which ones of these tools are the most important elephants that you need to solve? And basically, that was a big problem. They want to help planning those elephants in the morning, on the night before, figuring out what they're going to do the next day, and which ones of the tasks throughout the day that sometimes are imposed by either your business, your meetings, and they're imposed on you, which ones are the ones that you are going to focus, those 2 elephants that you must focus in order to get to that creativity level. Then the other problem that we wanted to solve, or opportunity, is that they need to be easy and fast to plan. So we needed to create some sort of like visualization that there was only space in your day to actually achieve 2 elephants. So there's like a little drawing of little plus and little bubbles that you could put your 2 elephants in there, just as a conceptual idea, and how you can like put them into this little space, and you knew, okay, this is the elephant that the 2 elephants that I'm gonna do for the day. And then another part that we realized that was really important is like the strategy behind the elephants. So basically, they said, I know what elephants I have to do throughout the day, and some of them are about like planning, some of them are research, some of them require different types of tools. So like, I want to put that this elephant is this type of elephant, and I want to get tips on how to better perform doing this elephant. How much time should I expend on it, and etc. So like, what is the best way, the most strategic way that I can solve these elephants for the day? That was something that they expressed, and the research showed us that's actually what they needed. Then something really important was remembering to take brain breaks. So basically, I made a little cartoon. The person is here, really, really overwhelmed, all forgetting, getting all these notifications and work, multitasking. You're not supposed to multitask. And then your tool comes to the rescue and tells you, hey, looks like a lot is going on. It's time for you to take your rest. And then you get this timer for 5 minutes. Maybe it like close everything up for you, and then you get to see you're doing amazing. You have done 1 out of 5 brain breaks for the day, and now this person becomes calm and collective and can keep thinking super high order thinking. So that was one of the important opportunity. Then something really also another thing that was really important about the brain breaks is that they said, okay, I know I have to rest, but I don't know how I rest. How do I really quiet my mind? And that's something that is actually very personal to each individual. So some people meditate, like I said before. Some people listen to music or go for walks. Brain breaks and the way that you rest is very personalized. So what they expressed that they needed is some sort of like menu that it doesn't only reminds you to take a break, but perhaps based on the activity that you've done before, it gives you options and say, for the activities that you're doing throughout the day, perhaps listening to this calming music is the best way of resting today. So they wanted a proactive suggestions on how to rest your mind. And then you see here the little guy like floating because he's so calm and relaxing. So that's like perfect. Then another really important factor of like taking of like this application that they needed, that they expressed that they needed, was how to make adjustments, like understanding how your day is going, not in a calendar way, but in a more conceptual way. Is there an easy way that I can look at my phone and when I feel like I might be not performing as well, or I might be tired, and then the phone itself in just such an easy way can tell you, or the tool, you're not doing that well because maybe you're missing a couple brain breaks, or you're putting 2 to 3 elephants that perhaps are like too big. So they wanted an easy way to like see how I'm doing throughout the day, kind of like a coach that can tell you you're doing okay or you're not doing that well, and then you can adjust, either adjust for that same day or adjust for the next day. But they didn't need to see a calendar. That they already have calendars on their phones, on the computers, on everywhere. They wanted a more abstract way of knowing. So that's why I made a little drawing of a little guy here, like a little bubble with like a tear, because you're not, it's like feel sad because you're not doing that well. Yeah. And then basically based on all of that, all of those sketches and problems and opportunities, we kind of had to go back to the drawing board and generate like new ideas based on the problems that we identified that were good, that they were actually the problems to solve. And of course, the project was going to be like about 3 months time, and ended up being like 7 months time because because of these like changes. Again, sometimes the companies don't really know what they want, and the users don't know what they want until you do some sort of testing, you actually listen, you provide ideas, visuals, even if it's in paper form, for them to like express their needs in a better way. There's like a famous quote, I think it's like Henry Ford, that said like, people don't know what they want. If I listen to people, they'll just ask me for a faster horse. And then I think Elon Musk says that if I listen to what people say out there and not really think about the problems that I'm gonna solve, I will be designing a minivan every single time, because that's just the average of what people think that they want. But when you start listening to actual problems and start looking at like the real the real issues that people are dealing with by observing, you start getting like opportunities that are much farther, and they're not so shallow. They have more depth. So this is some of the sketches that I started showing. Some of the ideas were like, okay, it needs to be this assistant that can kind of show you how you're doing throughout the day. It needs to have these timers and ability to schedule your elephants and your brain breaks and have reminders, and it needs to know what you've done through the day in order to know what you're going to do next, and the best suggestions of how to go about it. And then perhaps there's this little bubble brain thing that tells you whether you're doing well because you have put your 2 elephants throughout the day, you've completed your brain breaks. It's like an easy way visual that you can see, like, I'm doing so well, and I guarantee that I'm performing at my highest level right now for creativity and the things that I need to like perform for. Or on the other hand, like, if I don't get to do this routine, if I don't get to add the elephants, I don't take the breaks, easy way of your brain knowing, like, it's sad, is knowing like that you're not doing well. And then I also like they said that they don't want to have a person, a robot, someone telling them what to do. They want to like almost figure out for themselves. And but the what we gathered that was that they wanted like an abstract little Siri type of thing telling them visually that they were doing okay. They also are like checking their phone. They want to do it really easy. They want to do it fast and without getting too much attention. Like this needed to feel like it's not another elephant to do, like it's not another thing to manage. It needs to feel like it's proactive, it's actually helping you. So we started testing again. But this time, because we are a little bit more confident, we have a lot more information about who our users are, what they need, what they want. We can up the level of testing and provide different tools in order for us to visualize things. So for that to happen, I designed this application where it has a timeline where you can add all your elephants, and then you can add, and then automatically your timeline would like get all these brain breaks put into it. You can also customize it, but it's based on your calendar. And when you have a brain break, it will show you what is the best way that you can that you can take this brain break at this time. Perhaps it's meditation, maybe it's medication, but perhaps it's meditation, or perhaps it's going to a walk. But you got options there. And then like if you have an elephant that is like preparing for a keynote, you get not only like a time and a timer for you to focus on it. That's something really important for when you're like performing in this big task, but you can also get like suggestions on how to do these tasks better. And then not only like suggestions for how to do this time better, but just suggestions in general. So you have these tabs, you have these 3 tabs there. This is where I am here. This is to add more items into your timeline. And then you also have this like little education tab where they will give you like tips on general ideas on how to perform better for your elephant, etc., or even your rabbits. And then we build these like prototype. So we build a prototype that will allow us to like, and then they used it for a couple of weeks. It was, some of the things worked, some of the things didn't work. You will be able to like say whether you completed an elephant, and then if you don't complete it, it adjusts, and every time, and then if you say preparing for a keynote and you didn't complete it last time, perhaps this time suggests to separate more time for your keynote, or to put like multiple days for the keynote presentation, depending on when it's presented. So it's a more intuitive and like better suggestions. And these came out to be the idea that we went for. We started testing. Like we said, we tested this idea, and then we did that again. We presented to them again. We tested it again. We iterated, and that's the process. Like never ended. The process never ended. But I can't go on and on. The project, even to this day, keeps evolving and evolving, and the application keeps moving towards becoming better and better. I think that we all know that our applications or tool, like ourselves, keep moving, keep being updated, and then they never really are finished, because we are never finished. But the process never ends, and my presentation did. Yeah. I hope you guys dig it, and hopefully you guys have lots of questions.
We do. Hello, everyone. First, thank you, Roque. I've known Roque for a very long time. and thank you for setting this up. I love that. I would like to hear not just how other projects work, but how designers and their minds work. And I think it's super important for Professor Galvez and my class, for them to see different perspectives of design and the tools that designers use, so that they can see how normal they are, right? That they're not exquisite, that there's a matter of post-it notes, and that's the main thing, right? So I love that you show us how you present information to big clients in such a easy run to CVS and get some post-it notes and let's present this way. So thank you very much for that. Guys, on the for everyone watching, we have the ability to send us questions either in the main chat section, or you can send us questions in the Q&A. What we do we want to go into question? We have one. We have one from Dorothy done. And the first one right here says, is this product at work in the world? Is this something that is working right now? Like, I need it.
So
I want it.
Yes, this product is out there. It looks different because this process that I showed, we actually, the client was really happy with how much we were learning. They understood that we were going much deeper than they thought that we needed to go. And we repeated it multiple times. So the actual product looks a lot different. Unfortunately, this product is something that you get once you graduate from the SMART program. But that's why I love sharing these, because the learnings of separating your day and your tasks into 2 elephants, many rabbits, and 5 brain breaks is really valuable for anybody in school, in work. I think this, and it's something that we intuitively know, but the research shows that there's some limits and capacity of 24 hours that we have to do that. So yeah, it is out there. It looks completely different than the last iteration. And it's for the SMART graduates. But like I show you, the learnings you can implement in your own Google Calendar, in your own applications and notes, or however you manage your time. I think the learnings are they're universal.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I know that I used to set up reminders to remind me to drink water. That was one that I need a reminder because I was very dehydrated and nobody likes to be thirsty. But we have a question from the audience. We have a question it's a question with multiple questions. So let me just break it down to you so we can digest it better, okay? I think the first question that is relevant on this one is, would you share with us who are the members of your team? Who are the individuals, and what do they do individually that contributes to the project altogether?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had strategies, we had a project manager, we also had one designer, and then we had several developers. So my role, the strategist role, was to make sure that we were going in the right directions, that we were thinking strategically, and that each individual team and clients were informed of everything that happened, along with the project manager. The project manager was not only like manage our time, but it's also like setting up goals and timelines for ourselves, mostly for designers and developers. So I think that there's, in most of the teams that I work, there's kind of like two buckets that I can see. The people who help us organize stuff, sometimes they're strategists and project managers, and then the builders, the people that have to implement, they either have to design or code, or however like the tool is there. So that's kind of like the two teams. Me as a designer, and most of my career, I've been put into telling stories, creating ideas from just concepts, sketching, and then I design all the way to visual design. I create prototypes, and then the developers sometimes take my prototypes and do real coding into them, or they start building whatever we're sure about, they start building. So for instance, for this project, there's a front end and then a back end. The front end is what you can see on the screen of your devices and what you touch and interact with. That part, we didn't know exactly how it was going to do, so we didn't start building that first. But the backend is how all the data, so if you have elephants, where all that information gets stored, where does it come from? How do we set up notifications? How do we submit to App Store? Are we gonna build it on iOS? Are we gonna build it on Android? Is this a web application? Is it all of them? So a lot of those back end things, a lot of the structural things for the project were being built as I was coming up with ideas. I hope that answered the question.
It did. No, we just definitely want to showcase how, just like our class is interdisciplinary, right? We have different areas of authority. We want to show the students how necessary that diversity of thought is in the design field, and that we need as many as possible to have something so successful. So thank you, because they can see like everyone has their own individual task, but individual tasks built onto others' individual tasks. Yeah. So you need them all to make something happen. So
this has been true. This has been true my whole career. Working at Google, I work with many different people, very, very smart people. And then I was at the Google Translate team. So I was designing the iOS and Android app that you guys use, more particularly conversation mode. So if you tap on the microphone, that interaction, that was like something that was my project. But for Google Translate, I not only work with translators around the world, researchers around the world, because we had like 2 billion users, but also my main person that I work with was a writer. Because, for example, we have 4 buttons, and those 4 buttons need to be translated to 40 languages they need to be translated to 40 languages. So the names need to make sense. So for example, one of them was talk, and the other one was like speak, and the other one was like see. But if you put like vision, it doesn't make sense. It might make sense in another language, but it doesn't make sense contextually to like each other. So a writer was like the best person that I can work with. And then right now at Capital One, I design tools for fraud, to detect fraud, for checks, and we use like machine learning. Right now, we work with some psychologists that are helping us figure out like ways that we can like detect fraud, and it's always been so different. Yeah.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about your work, Roque. Thank you so much. And that Google example just blew my mind, and I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. But I have a question. So one of the things that occurs to me is as an anthropologist who works on migration issues, I'm often, trying to understand structures and systems that seem kind of perverse and even evil in their manifestation. The reality of how things play out is often inhumane. And one of the wonderful things about our course is that your sister and I are talking a lot about how I don't know if maybe you weren't trying to give away that you're siblings, but that that everything is designed, some things more intentionally than others, and the immigration system is kind of Frankensteinian in that it's been a series of bad decisions that kind of has created this monstrosity that we have now. And so I'm just curious, as someone working on teams where there's a lot of intentionality and obviously a lot of resources, and there's a client who's kind of hiring this whole team of professionals to really thoughtfully address an issue, whether you kind of look at the world and are like, I wish my team and I could deal with the electricity in Dallas problem, or if you kind of look around the world and wish that you could bring that level of attention and intentionality to, either public, infrastructure or systems or structures that are kind of outside of those stuff that you're usually asked to do.
That's a great comment and really good question. I think that me and a lot of the people in my circles, we almost have to tune it down and tune it out, because we're I've been taught to solve problems and to observe. I think the good designers are really good at observing, looking at opportunities, and there's so much in the world that we can do. I went through becoming an American citizen, and it was a mess. I mean, it was years and years, thousands of dollars, and just confusion all over. I was confused all the time, and overwhelmed. And I remember just every time I had to fill up the paperwork that said the exact same thing that I've been writing the exact same time. Every time that I had to go and drive 2 hours to South Carolina or to Atlanta to do fingerprints, a lot of the times I was like, oh my God, there has to be better ways. And I would go into these thinking process of thinking about the systems, and it just gets bigger and bigger. I quickly realized that it's much bigger than me. And then it starts being oh, but what about this law? Oh, okay, but what about that law? Oh, and what about people in different states? And then it just starts becoming so much bigger. I'm not saying that you shouldn't think that way and try to solve the right problems. I think that sometimes a lot of things have a big impact that are small, and if you observe small things as a designer, you can solve so many different problems. You could redesign the layout of a room and make it a more enjoyable space for someone who needs it, and that could make a big impact. Or you could go to California and get an angel investor and get millions and hundreds of millions of dollars and design an app that universally help people go through the naturalization project. It's either or, but once you start thinking on solving problems and observing, you kind of have to tune it down, otherwise it gets overwhelming. But it always gets bigger and bigger. I think this example of my case study shows that you can always go deeper and find more better solutions and more targeted solutions, and always add more smarts, more intelligence to your applications, to your tools. There's always that process of evolution almost.
What you're saying is really resonating for me. And I know I'm always saying to myself, I wish they had an anthropologist on staff at, X place, because an anthropologist could really help them. And now I'm wondering if you wish they had a designer on staff in every institution.
I have 2 coworkers who are anthropologists, who are their title is designer, but they are anthropologists by what they study. And then we have Laura, who's a writer, who's also a designer. I think that all these tools, I think everyone's designer, and we've called them differently throughout the times. like I think Einstein is a designer the same way as Michael Jordan was a designer, like in different ways. So but so I think like but also having different points of views is also really important. Like, so not only like an anthropologist, but also like what does a painter has to do? Like, what's their opinion of a painter? And perhaps like we'll have like a big contrast between the ideas that they come up with.
That I think that is pretty much what is so funny, because we were just speaking to our class about the need for different perspectives. We are, for example, right now we are having a task where we're asking our students to go and interview someone to tell their immigration story. And we were saying these are the technologies that are available to you, but we would say cautious. Some technologies don't understand accents, or don't understand Spanglish, or don't understand. And we were saying, why do you think that is? Why? And it was very interesting. At the beginning, they were blaming themselves, which is usually what customers do. They were saying, I should speak slower, or I should have not have an accent, or I should speak the right type of English. And I was like, I want you to go deeper. I was like, let's push it more. And I was like, who are the people that you think are designing these experiences? And they were like, and when I said that, they were like, well, maybe it's just, maybe the same type of people that come from the same type of place. And maybe that's why they don't realize that there are people who do not come from the same type of place. And so we were trying to get them to understand that technology is supposed to work for you, not you for it. And that we need perspectives like, like someone like you that has an accent or has a different life experience to come into the spaces and, point that out, right? Because it takes someone to say, what about someone who doesn't speak the language? What about, it's like the same, the same example that you were saying, which I annotated. It's not all solutions fit all the users. And you have to ask questions, and you have to put yourself in the space of the user to understand, hey, this is what works for this person, this is what works for that person. And part of that is not just a difference of opinion, but also a difference of design styles, of cultures, of languages. We have a writer, a designer, a painter, an anthropologist. Those are all the people who are needed to change something. So I love the fact that whatever we're lecturing our students is actually reflected. I'm telling you, is the truth. It's important to have those different in perspective. I think the one question that coming back was, how important is storytelling in design? Because it seems like when they got it was when you showed the story. So I would love if you can point that out.
So I since I was in school, I my professors have been telling us, and I think they had premonitions of they kept saying that the future was for storytellers, and they call storytellers are different, have different forms. You could be a photographer and be a storyteller as the same way as you could be a developer, a programmer, and be a storyteller. I think it's I think story, yeah, it's that's why it's a verb, right? Is it a verb? Yeah. I was looking at this interview with Kevin O'Leary, one of the guys from Shark Tank. I don't know if you guys have seen that show, and he was talking about the pandemic and how how it has affected his portfolio of companies. He's got 50 companies, and he kept saying how out of the 50 companies, 10 will not make it past pandemic. A lot of the ones that are based on getting together, weddings and things like that, they won't make it. And then he says, but all the other ones are doing well, and they're doing better than the year before. And they've changed from 10% direct to consumer to 60, 70% direct to consumer. And he's like, one of the biggest surprises of this pandemic for me was that I've had to hire over 200 storytellers. And then the interviewer said, what do you mean? I've had to hire videographers, writers, artists, photographers, people that tell stories to maintain my companies, to tell the right stories about the right products, to make sure that people get the idea. So that was like a really cool like interview. I saw it on Instagram. I think it's like Gary V's like account. And like that's something that they've been telling us all the time. Like the great like developers, the great businessmen, they all like go on stage, they all tell really wonderful stories through their websites, through their products. That's all we're doing, and we've done it since we're humans. So I think like storytelling is essential. I can show my clients the best designs, the best graphics. I can show presentation without any spelling errors and they will be great. They'll be fine with it. But if I tell them a good story, if I like push the right buttons and like motivate them the right way, that's really powerful. And that's what I've been doing my whole career. Again, my spelling is not very good looking. So if, but I tell good stories, and that's where like people get convinced. That's how you motivate someone. That's how you get funding. That's how you get people excited about your project. That's how you get the best developers, the best designers, by telling good stories about what you want to do.
I mean, you know, what can I say? Yes, that thing, you know, is really great that you didn't say designers or you didn't say artists. It's storytelling, because we all have different ways to tell our stories and to tell stories. And for example, our class is a class that there's a lot of measures involved in their class, and they all have their own way to tell stories. And I think, you know, the way that we see great ideas coming to life is that we validate all of those stories, and they all.
I've gotten to work with like lots of people and hire younger designers, work with them, guiding them. And one of the things that come out of school that I notice is like very academic stuff. Like, and I learned English when we came here when I was like 16. I never lost my accent, and I make lots of mistakes. And when I like see like people just coming out of school, they want to do all the steps and all the stuff that they say. They even sometimes when we see research and someone's using a prototype the wrong way, they get upset and they're like, that's not the way that I designed it. And I was like, that's the way that people will use it. But anyways, like the best stories are just simple. Like it's like when you sit down and you tell someone, hey, let me tell you a story. Here's what happened. This is the beginning, and this is the middle, the problem, and this was the solution. Those are the best way of communicating, even at work levels, and they're very simple. So like going back to like reading like kids' book, they tell the best stories, the best morals, they're easy to understand. That's how you want to communicate too. Like your ideas should be universal, should be accessible for people. Why do I have to use like fancy words or whatever? If I can just tell it simply and most people will understand it, that's more intuitive and that's more democratic. That's more welcoming. So those are the best stories, in my opinion.
This is very heartening, isn't it, James? From our perch in arts and humanities,
it is.
We're useful.
Absolutely.
Right? Our disciplines are needed.
Right. There are a number of courses. I was just thinking about this in the BFA in multimedia performing arts. There's a course that's the title is digital storytelling, right? So, and the point is that we are telling stories, and the students are using as different media. You know, so it's visual. It can be sound, film, right? There's theatrical components sometimes. And so the point is that what unites these different ways and different skills and different interests is that it's ultimately about creating a story. So I'm fascinated to hear what I think to be the truth, which is that human beings essentially relate to each other through stories, and they explain things through stories, and the narratives that we can create are actually vital. And to have people who have the experience in how to tell stories and who have learned the skills to tell stories better and even to come up with better stories is a hugely important part of the time that you can spend in college taking courses like this course and the other courses I mentioned. So I like the idea that we can justify what we do in our courses, in our departments in the school by appealing to the value of storytelling. And that does cross all sorts of disciplinary boundaries for us. We have students engaged in this. Sometimes I don't even know if it's understood as that they're engaged in storytelling ultimately, but that is what they're actually doing. And then I said, but I think we're being more explicit about it in certain courses. The point is to understand that this is employable upon graduation, that companies are I mean, you mentioned, this is the most fascinating anecdote I think I've heard in a year. He saw 200 storytellers, essentially. That to me it's absolutely music to my ears, because how much more important, I mean, there's nothing that's more important apparently right now than getting the talented storytellers. And the companies who are, interested obviously in doing well and surviving in a pandemic, but they turn to storytellers to survive a pandemic. They turn
Well,
to
you don't have the tools that you used to have before. You can't go to the store and touch things and stuff. You have to understand why you want to purchase this. And it's also pretty bad. You have no idea how much money I've been spending on Instagram. They just know and they just tell you good stories. It's dangerous too. It's dangerous.
But I think another thing I just want to amplify that you said is it's not only knowing how to tell the story, but it's knowing how to receive the story, because a big part of your presentation was how you listened. And I think being worthy of holding people's stories is also something that's really important. And that's a relational quality that's not equally distributed in the population, right? You're talking about, people sometimes coming to you from a more academic orientation who are like, this is the right way to do it. And what you're saying is, no, the right way to do it is what people do with this. And so one of the things that we're talking a lot about in class is how do we elevate the life experiences, the embodied knowledge of migrants and immigrants with the migration system, and put that, at the top, as that's our archive, that's our data that has to inform how we do things, not how lawyers or philosophers, forgive me, James, or anthropologists or anybody else says we're supposed to do things, but actually what is the lived experience, and to access that, and one of the things when you were, sorry, I don't want to railroad this, I'm talking too long, but the brain stuff made me think about, also the opposite, right? Like there are people who don't have the luxury of trying to maximize, their time to work on elephants, but are actually trying to cope with, trauma or injury, or, and so how to navigate, that and honor that life experience in a way that brings all of this other stuff to bear as well, right?
So that's a really good point. The Center for Brain Health has like lots of different programs, and they have programs for people with disabilities or like trauma, or like people with different ways of seeing the world, and like they use technology to like help out. So it was really impactful to see like that perhaps like people with autism can use a virtual reality set and practice things in the day-to-day, so they can look at like facial expressions, or like there was concepts behind like public speaking and things, and how do you use technology to practice public speaking. There's all these different ways, and even if you're like fixing a roof, there are set elephants that you have to go through when you're like fixing a roof or remodeling a room. Like every different like profession has those different elephants and tasks and rabbits that are like tedious. You just have like, if you like, you just have to kind of apply to whatever whatever field you're in.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm super happy to have you here, Roque. I think it's a treat for our students, to be honest, because they get to see how what all these professors are telling them is true. Like it is that way in outside of the school, guys. Like believe us, we're trying to help.
I didn't mess up your classes.
No,
No, it's fabulous.
No, but even if you had said something that contradicts, that's part of it, right? It's like people gonna have different perspectives, and I think it's super nice that they got to hear you repeating and proving what we tell them, but also not only the message but the messenger, right? They got to hear someone that sounds like them and that has gone through similar situations and experiences, work in these fantastic companies as you have. And so I thank you for taking the time to come and speak to my class and everyone else who's watching it. I know that at least my students, I know they're gonna come back with some amazing questions and takeaways. So I can't wait to speak to you guys in a little bit. But I wanted to thank James and for giving us this platform. I just love to bring people that I know are gonna just like you, Roque. You're like cilantro. You like parsley, right? You gotta add it to the food for it to elevate. So thank you so much for adding a little bit of condiment into today's class, Roque.
Thank you, Roque.
Thank you for having me. It's like such a pleasure to be here. I really like sharing some of my stuff. I often get to talk, but giving a platform where I can like freely talk and express myself and just show sketches and things that are not like so polished like most people might think, I think is really special. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think I will see you guys later, right? I'll have another opportunity to talk to you guys.
Yeah, we'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for being here.
I'll see you guys in class in a little bit.
Yeah, our students, hop over and we'll meet you on the other Zoom in a minute.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you again. That was
Bye, guys.
Thank you.